Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Morning Talk. I'm going to be talking about a very important sort of personality today, Angela Merkel. You know, she's going to be retiring soon, and her party has just lost power in the recent elections in September. But the legacy she has left behind, I think, is worth sort of recognizing. And I will be talking about that today. So let's see what we can cover today. My general sort of take on the situation globally, and from that perspective, we can look at Germany. And once we start looking at Germany, we can look at some of the milestones that are recognized as being a contribution by Angela Merkel to Germany and to the world. Then we'll talk about the merger of Germany, East and West Germany a little bit, because that has been an important milestone, which made Germany into what it is today. And of course, we will talk a little bit about the Eurozone, because the EU, as you know, has a subgroup of countries, about 17 of them, that use the euro as their currency, a common currency. So that's an important thing, and we'll talk about that, and the implication for Greece for a little while. And then, of course, the big issue about immigration, because Germany was one of those countries which had a very open policy, open border policy, and we'll talk about that and the consequences on Angela Merkel of having a liberal sort of policy on that. And also we'll talk about the green projects that she has supported, particularly about the nuclear, and of course the automobile industry as well, which, as you know, is one of the best in the world. So with that, let's get cracking. Here, what we see is her leadership. I think she has gone through 3 American presidents and about 5 UK prime ministers, I think. And here you can see a picture of her confronting Trump with all the others looking on. Her relationship with Trump, of course, has been a bit sort of well sort of known, because he refused to shake hands with her when she visited the White House. A snub, of course, but then knowing Trump, I don't think anybody holds him in high regard, and therefore that snub was not taken too seriously. She had very close relations with Obama. Obama looked to her for her very genuine policies that she wanted to effectively bring about in Germany. And of course, the rest of the kind of popular global leaders as well. And of course, she is also seen here with the royalty. Now, here she's representing, in a way, Europe, because China, as you know, one of the biggest economies in the world, and she wants to be close to China. And we can see that that was not the sort of narrative that Trump was pursuing. Even today, with Biden in power, USA is not that friendly with China, which I think, according to Professor Mahbubani, I don't think is a good policy. It needs to have a policy which is cooperative rather than confrontational. And Angela Merkel believes in that, and therefore she had strong ties with China. Along with China, also she had good ties with Russia and with the USA, the former Bush over there. So although there are sort of differences with US policy now, but nevertheless, I think she has had good relations in the past. Now, according to the German sort of parliament, you can be leader more than once. You had to be elected leader of the parliament, and you form coalition with other parties, so that you have the majority, and then you become the chancellor. So the head of a party then gets chosen to be the chancellor of the main party. And of course, they can stand for more than once. In this case, there's no limit, and here she's standing for 4 sort of elections, and she has won all of them. Her rise came about initially when she's actually from East Germany, and she had a good education in science, a doctorate in chemistry, I think it was, And she has used that skill of university training to bring about not only a good understanding about scientific sort of issues, but also in general global issues. Here she's seen as the Minister of the Environment in 1994, and thereafter became the leader of the Christian Democratic Party after Helmut Kohl. She's recognized, of course, globally as the person who best represents Europe, and with a face which reflects the liberal policies of Europe, humane policies of Europe, rather than the rather right-wing policies that one sees in some countries of Europe, which are emerging at the moment, especially in the Eastern Bloc of Eastern Europe. So here we are, but now it is her final sort of stint as Chancellor, and she's going to be stepping down once a new government is elected after the recent elections that took place in September. And her party came second, but nevertheless, it was just a difference of 2 points between the leading party and her party. So there is an opportunity to form a coalition with others. So that is to be seen now, how that government is going to emerge. It could be that the SPD will form a party, form the government, and possibly CDU may not be in power. But nevertheless, I think there will be a strong force in parliament. Now, she has been recognized as one who is a defender of the free world because of a very outlook being very open and if you like, liberal. Although she belongs to the Christian Right Party, Democratic Party, which is a little bit off center to the right. Nevertheless, she moved to the left a bit to be able to try and build a consensus so as to form government. So she's got this sobriquet as a defender and of being a liberal on top of that. Now, this is the coalition governments. Usually what happens in Germany is that these smaller parties, they come together to support the major party and then they form the government. And this is the parliament here. You can see the seats here. CSU is this black dots here. And this is the government that they have formed. They have been in coalition with SPD. So these two majority sort of number of seats give them a clear sort of mandate. Here, this is essentially to indicate where the party stands in terms of the left-right type of notions. And this is the center. So you can see the CDU is the right of the center, which is towards the right. And then what she does is she comes towards the center a bit to form the coalition with the SPD there. So that's how she has been able to maintain power. Now, under her, the big reforms have been the big child care. She brought that in, which was sorely needed in Germany. And this was a very popular move, and that sort of enabled her to, of course, spend money, which the SPD, being a left of the party, was very keen to support as well. And of course, she was very much for this policy and therefore got those reforms through, legislation through. So her standing has, if you see, from the time she was elected 2005 to 2014, it has been very, very high. 75% of the people approved of her leadership of Germany. And why only 2014? That's because at 2015, the big problem of immigration came about. And that's when she lost popular support, and we see that. Now, here again, the conscription is something that she brought in as well. End to conscription. Because until then, the German people had to sort of abide by having to go into the army. So when she ended that, so that was a popular move, and that's why she has remained popular as well. Now, these are the party's seats in parliament. You can see there is a gradual build-up over her chancellorship. But then in 2017, it went down, and that was solely because of immigration and the rise of the AfD, which is the right-wing party. Now, initially, Germany in 2015 had open borders. So when a lot of these immigrants came in from Syria and from the Middle East. They were welcomed by Germany, and there was a very good feeling about taking in as many as they could. And something like about a million altogether came within her period of time. But then her idea was to try and not block these people coming in, but to try and see whether she could get an agreement with the rest of the countries of Europe to share the burden of immigration. But none of them really came forward. So she was stuck, and she nevertheless managed to give a fair amount of immigration visas to the people coming in. Now, one of the things, of course, consequences of being a liberal on the immigration side was this rise of AfD party. Since the CDU moved to the left, that space became available for the AfD, which is the right-wingers. So the right-wingers chose the immigration as their card to play, and they played it. And of course, they were helped by one Arab incident that took place, which killed one of the Germans, and they played up on that, and that sort of turned the Germans against the immigration. Not all of them, but the feeling changed. So here we are, seats in parliament. These are the relative sort of positions of other parties. Now, this is the major party of Angela Merkel, has the majority. And you can see the SPD has fewer seats. This is the party, this September came higher than the CDU. So they will probably form the next government. Here we've got the Green Party, and the AfD, of course, did well, and they probably are not the kingmakers, because this Green Party has done much better and in this current election, and they will be the kingmakers, and we'll see how that government emerges. Now, one of the popular things that made the Green Party popular, of course, was the Germany announced the phase out of the nuclear power plants. This is after the Fujiyama sort of Fukushima disaster that took place. And thereafter, Germany became very, very conscious of the damage it can do, not only to Germany, to the environment, and they started to phase out their nuclear reactors. But of course, it couldn't be done straight away, and they had to sort of phase it out. And that, of course, meant the rise of the Green Party, as you can see here. Now, of course, CDU lost and AfD came up, but Green, of course, are the kingmakers now. So we'll have to watch their negotiations that they're conducting with the SPD right now to form a coalition government. And they're going to be talking with the CDU as well, and we'll see which government comes into power. So that is going to be, when that government comes into power, Angela Merkel will be stepping down, but she will be stepping down to a legacy, which I think she can be very proud of. Okay, a little bit about the economy. Now, under her, the economy did very well. It went from 2.8 trillion in 2005 to 3.5 trillion in 2020. And this is the relative sort of standing compared to UK and to France. And you can see that they've done, this is the 2005 figures, and this is 2020. And the standing is there. So under her leadership, you can see that the support has really been relatively sort of good. And of course, that is because of her leadership that she has maintained the economy at a very good level. Now, one of the things she did when she came into government is to cut the government spending. Now, usually there are two schools of thought. One is the Keynesian, which says spend by government and so on, and create employment, boost the economy. That's one school of thought. Then there's the other one, the Hayek one, which is a smaller government, and let the free enterprise emerge, and they will bring in more jobs. And this is what she belongs to, the Hayek school, and therefore she's cut spending. And you can see the spending went down quite a bit. And then over here, you can see the unemployment also went down considerably because private enterprise came in and provided the jobs. Now, the big jobs that have risen German economy to support the economy is the automotive industry. You can see these big names here, the Audi, the Mercedes, BMW, Porsche. They have set up a standard, very high standard for quality, and they produce, I think, the largest number of cars. And the next one shows you this. Germany's car production, this black line over here, as you can see, is exports the biggest number of cars to the world, followed by Japan, and then by the United States. So you can see the Germany's position as the lead car maker and exporter is considerable. Now, this raises the question of the new technology that is coming in, which is the EV, that's the electronic vehicle cars, electric cars, as opposed to what we have right now, which are the ICE cars, internal combustion engine, which are working on fossil fuels, oil. And of course, that is very polluted. So under Angela Merkel, she has given a permission to open up a gigafactory in Germany near Berlin. But it's been, in fact, delayed. The opening was supposed to have been in June, but it has had to encounter a lot of objections from the local. Objections having to do with tree cutting down, animals' livelihood, environment being lost, water being affected, the water table in the ground being affected. These types of issues, of course, are going to be resolved, and Tesla is working on that to resolve them. But these objections are actually raised by these automotive companies, like the big companies, because what it means to them is that if Tesla comes in and this capacity of this factory is going to be initially 500,000 to 1 million, and before long make 2 million cars, and that is enormous amount of cars, and they'll get the market share. The rest of the automotive industry in Germany is far behind, although they're producing cars, but they're not up to standard, and they're no match for Tesla technology. So let's hope that the new government that comes in, takes away some of the objections, and Tesla can resolve all those objections. It's just a delaying tactic that is being used politically. Now, on Russia, she has been a little bit soft as well. When it comes politically to pull out, when the time comes, ambassadors and so on, she has been very conscious about the energy needs of Germany. And that has been the root reason as to why they're not short of energy. Even today, when we are suffering on petrol pumps and so on, Germany is not having similar problems. So she wants to have more gas coming in from Russia. Now, this is the way that she's getting in. There was already a connection between Russia and Germany through Nord Stream 1. Now she's putting an additional line here called Nord Stream 2. And of course, this is going to double the capacity of the gas coming in. And for Germany, it's a very good news. But of course, USA is very knocked about it, because they say that's an additional lever that Russia can use on the West by sort of, shutting off the supply for political reasons. But I don't think Russia is going to be doing that in case of Germany, because Germany and Russia have a good understanding, and they are probably going to fare that relationship well in the future as well. Now, this is a quick word on the reunification. Now, reunification had taken place when Angela Merkel was already in the party, and she comes from East Germany, but then she joined the party and worked with the Helmut Kohl very closely to bring about the reunification. Now, as you know, the East Germany is a poor Germany, and in West Germany is the rich Germany. So, of course, there was a big burden that needed to be carried by the West German in order to bring the East Germans up. They're still not up to par, but Germany as a whole now is going places. So once the unification took place, the largest and most populous country was Germany. So it became, in fact, as it were, the one that called the shots as far as leadership went as well. And of course, European Union was there already. And EU has some very enlightened ideas about economy. And all the countries signed up for 4 freedoms. And these freedoms are freedom of labor, freedom of capital, freedom of services, and freedom of goods. So there is no barrier. It's as it were. It worked as it were one country. Otherwise, one would have to fill in forms, pay tariffs, and all sorts of things. So this promoted the European commerce enormously. But unfortunately, Britain sort of opted out of it because of Brexit. And Brexit is something which is not in the interest of UK, but nevertheless, the people voted for it simply because the media has not been too friendly to Europe. And because the media has not really pointed out the good benefits of Europe, the public went against Brussels. And of course, the immigration policies, because there's a free flow of manpower, and people in UK thought that they were undercutting the wages, and that was a sort of a wrong narrative. So the UK has been, in fact, taken a decision, I don't think, for its future benefit, in my opinion. Anyway, there is within Europe, there's something called the Eurozone. The Eurozone is those countries, a subset of countries, about 17 of them, that use common currency called the euro. And that achievement, again, is a phenomenal accomplishment. Because, as you know, first of all, to bring about a union of countries which had been warring in the past, to think of abiding by similar rules, common rules, and also having close-knit economies, it's an accomplishment that nobody has done anywhere else in the world. And of course, we can see that being a group of countries, it can match the power of USA and of China, because these are the powers that are rising, are there. And if you want to be able to sort of talk to them and be able to have a strong position, they need to have also a strong economy. Now, here is the euro, just a picture to show you that's what's being used in Europe. Now, one of the things that happened was as soon as this Eurozone came about, it not only helped the countries to grow. We have a bit of a dichotomy here, because the northern countries grew well, but the southern didn't do too well. Now, the southerns are known as the pig countries. The pigs are the Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. And they have sort of have an economy which are weaker than the northern economies of Germany or France or of even UK and of Netherlands and so on. But what happened with the Brexit, of course, and even before Brexit, I think Germany started to really, call the shots quite a bit in Europe. Now, one of the features about Angela Merkel for her success is that she is not a confrontational type of leader, like Trump has been, or there are a lot of autocrats who are. She builds consensus and therefore takes people along and this is where you can see her party, CDU, having the coalition with Christian Social Union, which are a conservative group, and the Democrat, which is the more liberal group. And that's why she moved to the center a bit to be able to form a coalition government with them. So during the financial crisis of 2008, Germany did relatively better, but Europe didn't do. So they had to, in fact, carry Europe in some ways, especially financially, by giving loans of all sorts. And one of the things that arose as a big problem for Europe was the Greece problem, because Greece had a type of economy which was weak. In fact, when they joined EU, they came in without fulfilling all the conditions that were set in order to join that club. So they, in fact, came in without satisfying all the requirements. So they couldn't really sort of match the economies of the other countries. And they had a much more liberal type of socialist policies, where they had retirement at a very early age and a large army. And therefore, a lot of money went for unproductive reasons. So what happened was that the value of their currency declined, and that put the pressure on the euro as well. So Angela Merkel said, we've got to save the euro because that affects all the countries of Europe. So she put conditions on Greece. The poorer ones here have said are the pigs. These are the ones that are in the south here. And these are the north. They're all tied to the euro here. So Germany was, because it has a strong economy, it was in a position to help, and its banks were in a strong position. And they also had loaned a lot of money to Greece. And in order to be able to make sure that the whole thing didn't default, Germany asked for certain conditions of Greece. And these conditions were basically to cut expenditure and that they would get loans from Eurobank. And that's what Greece had to do. And that sort of saved the Greece as well as the euro. But that anger sort of was there towards Germany. And these were the headlines of that time, you could see. But I think that was the right decision in order to save the whole of Europe rather than sort of succumbing to a fragmentation. So here we are talking, she was concerned about the integrity of the Eurozone. And that's what she did by getting Greece to agree. Because she said that if Europe fails, then of course, we're going back to square one, which is again the warring type of environment that caused World War I and World War II. Yeah, that's a classic sort of pose when she's out there talking. Now, this is the sort of immigration welcome that Germany gave initially. They were welcoming people coming in. But then that was in the 2015. But as the numbers grew, there was a reaction in Germany because of that killing that took place as well by an Arab at a station in Frankfurt near, I think. But nevertheless, they have given 140,000 people, visas, granted asylum, and there are more in the pipeline as well. But you can see in this bubble here, they are the largest people who have taken in the immigrants, and all the others are small little bubbles here because they didn't do at all well. So now one of the things that, of course, is that these countries that prevented Europe agreeing to taking in equitably the immigration that was coming into Europe from these war zones was the Eastern European countries like Poland and Hungary. They built fences and put no entry signs at the borders and so on. So that sort of prevented an equitable distribution of immigration taking place. But then Germany has made through Europe agreements with Turkey to hold the immigrants down there and with Libya and so on. So they are trying to do something about it, but nevertheless, their migration has not been solved really well. She couldn't build consensus because of Eastern European bloc. So there was solidarity. So she had to act alone by giving asylum to a lot of people in Germany. And her view is this, that we're all connected to each other, borders are there, but as human beings, we need to sort of look after each other. But that is, of course, a message that's lost very easily. Their popularity here, you can see, her popularity because of immigration has gone down quite a bit. And from here, top to down here as well. And then, of course, we have movements that go against, mainly by the AfD. And you can see the AfD has picked up a lot of supporters from their previous coalition and from their Alternative for Germany, a right-wing party. Now, her absence when she leaves, I think, would be quite unsettling. We have to see what sort of leadership emerges, and we'll wait to see how that comes about. What is happening in Europe right now, and of course, even in USA and in UK as well, there has been a shift to the right. The shift to the right has been firstly emotional because of immigration, because a lot of talk is there about people coming in and taking away the jobs. And of course, taking away the culture as well from the local people, which is a false narrative. But then, of course, that is the stuff of right-wing leadership, and people who fall into that trap, I think, are victims. Okay, I'm going to stop here, but nevertheless, I just want to finish up on the note saying that Angela Merkel will remain, I think, a giantess of a figure, of a politician. And I had given one more talk in my earlier weeks, I think, on her as a game changer. So if you go to my archive, then you'll be able to pick up that information of her in a bit more detail. But anyway, good luck to Angela Merkel, and we all wish her well in her retirement. Okay, bye. I'm not going to have a Q&A now because I did the talk at the classroom, and the technology didn't work over there, so I'm just doing it at home to upload it. So save your questions to me or send it to my email address. Okay, bye.